Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 554. Games that need further expansions.
Welcome, citizens, to Meeple Nation. Grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, warm up those dice, and join us at the game table as we discuss board games and the board gaming world. Each week, the hosts of Meeple Nation share their love for board games and the amazing memories that come from playing games with some very outstanding people. Let us now join our hosts in their natural habitat, the game table.
I love the sultry voice of Ra, voiced Addy.
Oh, wow.
Wow, whatever his name is over there.
Yeah, my voice is a little tired from the weekend.
Now that we're done gushing over Andy's voice.
You can go a little longer, it's all right.
The Meeple Nation podcast is sponsored by Game Toppers LLC. Do yourself the favor of perusing their wares, seeing if they have something that will make game night as epic and amazing as ours are with an amazing table topper. Toppers go on any surface. They are full table solutions, and they come with a variety of mats and fantastic little gizmos and gadgets. You want to enhance every game in your collection? Go check out GameToppersLLC.com.
We are the hosts of Meeple Nation. I'm Nathan Howard.
I'm Andy Holiday.
And I'm Douglas Stewart.
Nice. I love
Wow.
the sultry voice of Doug
Do you?
when he has a raw, harsh voice. I can remember his name.
Good job. You once.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah,
You remember.
good job, Greg.
Nice.
So the key is, if we want to sound better on the podcast, we just need to come really tired.
Yeah.
Is that
Tired with not much of a voice left because you were screaming for hours.
screaming at a football game?
Yeah, that's pretty
Nice.
much it, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good segue into Highlight 30, Andy, because I think that has to do with what you're talking about, right?
Highlight 30, we can totally talk about that. Why my voice sounds the way it does. Today, we flew back from Phoenix, Arizona. I took my son down for kind of a bucket list. We're both Bears fans, Chicago Bears fans, and they played the Arizona Cardinals this
So
weekend.
he's 13 years old.
He's 15.
He's 15 years old. He's not old enough to have a bucket list.
I know, but I am.
Okay. All right. I'll allow it then. I mean, he could have a bucket list. Not saying he can't have a bucket list.
It's a small
but-
bucket list right
yeah,
now.
Yeah.
He's filled that small portion of his small bucket,
His pale list.
his pale list. There
Yeah.
we go. However,
It's lunch pail list.
going to a Bears game has been on my bucket list for a long time. Now, granted, it wasn't in Chicago, which is still on my bucket list, but going down to a Bears game with my son was completely awesome. Not only that, we played a ton of games.
Oh, that's way cool. Because Caden's not really a big gamer.
He's
Of
not,
your
but
kids.
no, he's not. But the funny thing is he's quick and he picks them up so fast. The game we played the most was the Star Wars Deck Builder. I had played just the first Empire versus the Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd only played it twice, and I was kind of mixed feelings about it. I actually really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the Clone Wars edition better than the version with the Empire and the Rebels.
Same.
Yeah, I think I do too.
So we played that more than anything, and he's like, we played 3 times today in the airport. He beat me 2 out of the 3 times.
Oh, good for him.
And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
He picks up on stuff pretty quick, which is, I don't know why he doesn't play more games other than all those crazy boys show up at game night and they just want to,
He just wants to run, scream, and
oh yeah,
take his shirt off and wrestle in the living room.
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And shoot Nerf guns at each other. We played a lot of games. All but one of the games I took, we played. So
Good. What one didn't you play?
we didn't play Fantasy Realms,
Oh, okay.
but he really enjoyed Forest Shuffle too. We played Forest Shuffle. We played that 2 or 3 times and he's like, this is an awesome game, Dad. I really like this game. He was adamant that he was going to get that red deer tree strategy to work. Our last game we played, he scored a ton of points and I beat him by 2 points is all.
Oh, really?
So
Way
yeah,
to go him.
he's, like I said, I think he'll be a gamer once he gets a little bit older and, taking your shirt off and wrestling in the other room while during game night probably won't sound quite as fun as sitting down and enjoying the game. Well, at some point that will happen.
Yeah. Probably somewhere in the next year or 2, I would sure think.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Caden
maybe.
bounces to his own drum for sure.
No doubt about that. And it was a great weekend. A lot of screaming, a lot of cheering, even though the Bears didn't quite perform the way we wanted them to. We still cheered them on, and my voice has paid the price.
You guys said you were on row 13?
Row 15.
Row 15?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very cool. Based on what I saw from the pictures, it seemed like Caden was just like he was grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah.
That kid seemed happy.
He could barely stay in his own skin. He was just bouncing. He's like, I can't wait. We got there and he was all smiles. So
Good.
yeah, it was a great time.
Well, he'll fill up that pail soon enough.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, my highlight is not nearly so full of adventure, but I did get to have Nathan. And okay, so while you were out gallivanting around Arizona, we had game night at my house because, you weren't at yours.
Yeah, we thought about it. We thought about still going over there.
You probably could have.
Probably could. We were going to smoke something, and
I got 2 smokers there now, so
yeah.
totally could have.
Well, anyway,
We opted at Doug's house.
We had to settle for my humdrum little game room, but we did get the chance to sit down with you, Nathan, and Richie, and we played Dinogenics. And I had to do a little bit of a rules refresh. The teach wasn't amazing, but we got through it. And I think all 3 of us had an awesome time.
Oh, I loved it.
And you kicked our rear ends. Like I don't
know if I kicked it.
You did very, very well, though.
I did. I might have been doing something wrong. I don't know.
No,
but I very much enjoyed the game.
Yeah, I think you were doing great.
You won?
I did.
You were probably doing something wrong.
Probably was, yeah. It's that beginner's luck, and I figured out, just did something by chance, right?
Yeah.
And now the next time when I have some strategy, it's going to be...
You're like, I've got my head wrapped around this. Wait, what happened?
Yeah.
Well, here's what's shocking is that Richie came in last.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that kind of made me smile. That was that was my highlight. Not only did I win, but Richie came in dead last.
Wow.
Yeah. But Dinogenics is such a great game. This is a game that I've loved for several years now. One that I backed when it was running on Kickstarter, Jurassic Park, the board game. And it's worker placement at its heart. It's just a pretty simple worker placement game, but you are building your little pens out of fences and building dinosaurs, and they're all really cool, chunky wooden pieces. So they kind of stand out, but you're building your park, and you're building not only like the park part of it, but also sort of the administrative hotel buildings, like those types of things, like on the one side of the board. And I think it comes together in a really fun way, in a way that feels incredibly thematic.
Absolutely. I think as far as like Dinosaur World, Dinosaur Island, and Dinogenics, and obviously you're going to try to, not obviously, I guess maybe, but for me, I'm going to try to pin any of those to Jurassic World, right? Kind of have the same feeling of that movie in a board game, and Dinogenics did it better than any of those others.
Yep.
And I very much enjoyed it. I've played it and lost 3 times online already. That was before we played it in person. And so
you played it for the first time on Friday and won.
All right, Jared.
1 for 1. 1 for 1.
Jared.
Okay.
Good job.
Jared, you and your board game.
Andy is to online games as Jared is to normal board games.
Yeah.
At this point, the hills are so dug in that...
That's right. I picked up on what you were teaching pretty good, or not pretty good, real quick. Richie was a little bit new, which did give me a little bit of that leg up on Richie. I loved Dinogenics. Yeah. And BGA has an excellent implementation
it's good.
of it.
Yeah, it's a good implementation. What's exciting to me, because I do feel like if I had a criticism of Dinogenics, it's that I do feel like there are some small balance issues that veteran players, especially if you've played it a few times, you can kind of take advantage of that just imbalance the game a little bit. If you're new to the game, I don't know that it really matters that much. But if you are a veteran, it's like, okay, like strategy wise, I need to try on round 1 to get like a high dino value dinosaur into my park so that those points compound every single round. Right. That comes with experience and play. They are running a Kickstarter for this, for like an expansion, or I think it closed. I think it's done, but they recently ran a Kickstarter for like a little expansion, along with sort of a reprinting and revamping of the system. So this is going to come with new cards and a bunch of rules, balances, and things like that. And the version that's on BGA is the updated version.
Nice.
because those rules have already been released.
Yeah,
So there's like an extra card, I think, in the market with 2 slots for discounts. Some of the stuff you can do at the city center has been retooled and balanced, and you can take the same action twice, but they're a little more pricey. So just little things where they've kind of retooled and tinkered with the formula, and I think really streamlined it in a good way. I actually like the BGA implementation rules more than I do the at the table rules as it currently exists. So I'm really excited to get all the new components that come with the Kickstarter so that I can, have the at table version up to date.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to not go seek this out and pick it up.
No, I get that.
It's one that you've had for a long time, and it's one of those now that I really regret that we didn't get to the table sooner, because it is an amazing game. Very much enjoyed it. You're going to like it, Andy.
Yeah, I would like to play it without a migraine. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did play it at Hug a Meeple, and your brain was in your palms.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, we did play. Andy got through it because he had started it, and I think you just wanted to see it finished. But you were basically in fetal position the whole time.
Yeah, pretty much.
So as much as we've gushed about Dinogenics, I do have my own highlights. So speaking of online games, I was playing New York Zoo with my wife, and this is a game that she quite regularly defeats me at.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just this game. It's quite a few games.
I've also heard that.
But she comes to me and she's like, "What happened to our New York Zoo game?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, I was getting ready to take my turn. I had it all planned out. And then before I could take my turn, it aired out or something because it never came up. And now it's showing that it's done." And I was like, "Yeah, I won."
Does not compute.
Yeah.
Does not compute.
And she's like, "Wait, what do you mean?" I was like, "I won, so the game was over."
Leave it to an online game. You don't even know that the game is over and that your opponent won. I rest my case.
You are not wrong about that, actually. This is a legit point, because there are some games where I'm like, ooh, this is going to be close, and I can't wait to take my next turn. And then it's like, whatever happened to that game? And then you go check the list, and it's like, oh, it ended.
Yeah.
Jody won.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Speaking of Jody, I am able to, on a regular basis, defeat Jody and Awari.
that's good.
We'll see how long that lasts, but
I always feel good when I can beat Jody. Yeah, it's a good feeling. I just gave you and Jody a good shellacking potion explosion.
yeah, you did.
Which I mean, I was shocked, like that, because that was a very atypical game for me. I mean, I don't ever do quite that well, but man, it really came together. It seemed like every single time I took my turn, the tray was just perfectly lined up. Take a marble and basically collect like the whole row, and it all fit into like both of my potions. That was a good game of potion explosion.
Good.
But it doesn't count because
it.
it's online. So
it totally counts. Yeah, I think I had 37 points, and I think you had 90 something.
96.
Yeah, and Jody was at least in the running. He had
60.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 96 to 60 to, what'd you say,
37.
Yeah.
Winning.
Wow. Good job.
Yeah. So also speaking of winning, the other day we were at Doug's house. Again, not the same game night that you weren't there, Andy, but you were there. You chose to go in the other room and watch a movie instead of playing games, fun games.
That was the problem. Was you keep saying that word.
Oh, Deception is a fun
Deception
game.
is a really
but
fun
that's
game.
not what you. When someone talked about bringing out, what was it that was threatened?
Probably catchphrase.
Catchphrase. That's what it was.
Yeah.
When someone threatened catchphrase, I left.
And he was like, I'm going to the
You're
other
out.
room.
Yep. So we were playing Deception, and it was a new game to David and Richie.
I was
Sierra.
Sierra.
completely shocked at how many people there had not played that before.
It's a great classic game now. It's one of those where you close your eyes and you have the murderer and the apprentice, and they have to acknowledge who they are, and then the murderer is going to pick out the murder weapon and some key evidence left behind. Then they're going to both close their eyes, and then the witness is going to open their eyes. The witness is going to find out who the murderer is, and then
There's the witness and the protective detail.
The protective detail will know who the witness is.
Right.
So going through this process, and then everybody else is just an investigator trying to solve the crime. So we're going through this, and we had just dealt all the cards, and Doug had gone through and ran it smoothly the round before, and then with the second round, we're giving everybody else the opportunity to possibly be the forensic investigator, the person who leads it and guides it.
The scientist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Adrian, Dave's wife, got this opportunity. She was trying to run through it. Doug, with his eyes closed, was asking, hey, did the murderer, they see each other? And Adrian's like, yep, good, got all that. Then he's like, okay, have the witness open their eyes. And does the witness know who the murderer is? And she's like, yep, she does. Okay.
Whoops.
Yeah,
She pulled a Nathan.
yeah. It was great. So we're like, okay, well, we go through that.
Turned in the cards, reshuffled,
Reshuffle.
gave everyone a new roll.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah.
This is
Well,
awesome.
that happened right before.
This is awesome. I
The
had
Carson
no idea.
moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
great.
Andy and his wife are leaving. They're taking Carson home with them, and we're going through this whole process again. Adrian has the murderer and the accomplice open up their eyes, and Richie is the murderer, and he's looking around, and here comes Carson, and he's like, Richie, close your eyes.
Oh, it was so good.
And just was laying into Richie, you're peeking. You're not supposed to be peeking.
You're supposed to have your eyes closed.
So round 3, we shuffled them up, and we had to wait till Carson left at that point before we dealt out rolls again. Third try, we nailed it, but it was a great experience. The investigators won both times, so
Oh, nice.
it was good times.
It was.
Carson makes a lot of games fun. Carson makes my highlights a lot.
He's a funny kid. Yep.
Well, those are some awesome highlights.
The nice thing about that is, you just reshuffle and again, as opposed to when somebody messes up after 3 hours of playing werewolf.
That's very true.
When it's down to like the last 4 people out of like 30, and then somebody
Was that
drops the
crying
ball.
or was that laughing?
It was maybe a little crying. Yeah. So no, that was bad time.
Still too soon?
Still too soon? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, totally botched that game of werewolf. But good times.
Good
It
times.
was good times.
So we're not here to talk about highlights.
Oh, we are.
We are.
We are here to talk about highlights. But now we're done with highlights.
Okay, closing the book on Highlight 30. And now looking at the watch, it is time for the meat of the podcast.
Meet a clock?
It's meat o'clock. Sure, let's go with that.
Sure.
It went from Highlight 30 to meat o'clock.
That's so weird.
All
I
right.
kind of love it though.
So we are talking about games that need further expansion. So this may be a game that has some expansions. It might be a game that has no expansions, but games that we have played and enjoyed and feel like they could be expanded. I think we all made a list of 5. Looking at this list, somebody named Nathan made a possible list of 6, but my number 6 is on somebody else's. So yeah, we all made a list of 5.
Yeah, in no particular order for me. And I will just say, just as before we jump into it, I really tried to stick to games that actually didn't have any existing expansions yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was looking at this as like, what's a game that I think you could use an expansion that hasn't had one yet, or that one is not announced for yet. Now I'm breaking my own rule on a couple of these, and I'll talk about that when I get there, because a couple of them do have some small expansions that do a particular thing, but they need full expansions. They have what I would almost call more of a module than an actual expansion. So
Yeah.
anyway, we'll talk about those when we get there, but I kind of stuck with that just so as we go forward through the list, that was one of the driving things. Me.
I started along the same lines. I did, like you, Doug, I did break my rule just a little bit, but it'll make sense when we get there as well.
Well, I went a completely different direction.
You just went with stuff you want to see more of.
Yeah, exactly right. I had stuff that I've played and I enjoy, and I would definitely love to see it played in more of a wider selection. So
Awesome. I like it. All right. Well, let's dive into this. Our number 5's first, right?
yeah,
Well, my number 5 is Descent Legends of the Dark. So I know that there is an expansion out for this. This is actually one of my rule breakers. The expansion is a continuation of the storyline, But what I would really like to see, which is kind of my beef with this game in particular anyway, ever since it first came out, is that there's just not enough customization. There's not enough character customization. I would like to have more options, character options that I can dive into and explore. And I would love to have a less linear story. I think the replayability is pretty low on this game.
Yeah,
Once you've played it through,
Yeah, unfortunately.
it's just very linear. There's not a lot to explore. And then I didn't like the fact that it forces you to have certain characters in the party during certain adventures. I would prefer to just kind of let the players play the game how they want to play it instead of forcing certain things into the game. I did not like that. I understand why it was for story purposes, but I don't know. I didn't care for that very much.
It feels clunky, right?
It does.
Because what happens is like, let's say that you're playing it 3-player, right? You've got a pool of 6 characters that come in the game. So you're going through and it's like you kind of start with your characters. It's fairly open. Like anybody can be playing. No, actually 2 of the characters can't even start the game off.
Right. You have to unlock them.
You have to unlock them. That's right. But as the story goes, I guess in theory you could just be like, okay, if this character's in, you'll play that one. So you could each kind of take 2 or whatever. But if you've got like 4 players at the table, then it's like, okay, well, who's going to be the person who has to jump back and forth between characters and, do that kind of thing. It feels clunky.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like that about it at all.
Yeah, because you get invested in that character, even if there's not a whole lot of customization. There's a little bit, and you kind of get invested in the character you're playing, and then, that character's gone, and we have to put this new character in.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly right.
I didn't care for that very much. But I love character options. That's why I like Dungeon Crawlers is just the RPG aspect of it. And that was such a strength with the Descent 1st and 2nd edition. And I think that they just really missed a huge opportunity with.
Yeah, they streamlined this game a little bit more.
A little too much.
So I'll be honest. It bothers me that they kind of had the audacity to even call this a Descent game. Just call it something new.
Yeah.
That's fine. That doesn't bother me. But like when you think about what Descent, especially Descent 2nd edition actually hearing you and Dave talk about 1st edition, it sounds like 1st edition had even more customization.
Yeah. 1st edition was great.
I mean, you look at what those editions did with Descent, almost maddeningly high number of customization in terms of the scenarios that you could play, the characters that you could play, the builds you could do with those characters, multi-classing, all that kind of stuff. It almost doesn't seem right to call Descent Legends of the Dark a Descent game.
Yeah, I get that. And don't get me wrong, I've had a ton of fun playing this game.
I had a blast playing this game.
I mean, it's a great game. And we've started a new game with Doug, with you in the group and our friends Thomas and Brittany. And I'm still having a ball. I mean, nothing's a surprise. We've already played through it. Even though it's been several years, I can still kind of remember what's going to happen for the most part. So, but I'm still having a good time. So there is a replayability factor as long as it's been long enough, but you can't just play through it and then say, okay, that was fun. Let's play through it again and see what else there is to discover. That's just not there.
Yeah, no, I get that. And probably for that same reason, we'll be talking about more Fantasy Flight games this evening or this episode. I guess no surprise this evening when we're recording this episode.
And what is the expansion that is coming out for that?
Well, it's out.
It is.
And there's a new one coming out as well.
Yeah, there's a 3rd expansion coming out too. Yeah. The one that is out now is Descent Legends of the Dark Betrayer's War.
And the one that's announced is the Ghosts of Greyhaven.
Okay. Expansion content coming out for this game, but specifically what you're saying is you would love to see like a customization expansion for this. Something that really lets you dive into the characters individually rather than it being so on rails.
Yeah, I would love that.
I like that.
Allowed.
Allowed, Andy.
Whew.
It was touch and go for a minute.
Man, I'm so glad. I was going to have to change that.
So the first one that I'll talk about, I guess, like I said, these are not in any particular order, but I guess I'll kind of try to number them here on the fly. World Wonders. So this is a game that I thoroughly enjoy. 4 or 5 plays of this on record. So it's one that I'd like to play a little bit more of. What we found is that when we play this at higher player counts and those monuments would run out, the wonders that you put out on the board would run out. And they fixed this by releasing a little, I think it did have the word expansion on the box, but it's the Mundo Wonders pack expansion pack or whatever. And that's really nice. That I think that actually fixed the problem that they had where at higher player count, it would run out of those. And that's good. But other than those wonders, this didn't really introduce anything new to the game. And the thing is, this is a game that I think would thrive with some additional variation in the maps in particular.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah. So the base game does come with enough mats for everyone to play, and they're double-sided. So you've got 2 options. But this needs an expansion that introduces almost like Castles of Burgundy, right? You know how you have all the maps that you can put in that have like different layouts and stuff.
Yeah.
So doing the same thing where you've got like some that have a lot of water or, you know, a lot of land or islands, or give you a challenge, like some more challenging maps to play on as you're sort of building out your grid of pieces and parts, right? You're building the wonders and you're building the little districts. Also introducing new features to build, harbors or parks or sort of city building aspect of the game, more robust and replayable, I think would be a really good idea.
No, I agree, and I really do like the map idea, because if you know you compared it to the Castles of Burgundy, the strategy that goes into picking which map you're going to use, because it really can dictate how you're going to play that game and what you're going to choose, what your actions are going to entail throughout the game. That really, really increases the replayability of it, in my opinion.
I'm going to jump to an older game, 2012. This is a game that I was actually first introduced to on BGA. So I just played it for pretend for a while, Andy.
Well, you know, at least you figured out that you needed to play it for real.
Yeah.
And picked it up.
Well, I wanted you to be able to experience it because I like to share games with
thanks,
you too.
Nathan. I appreciate that.
But that is PI, 20s feel, where you have a variety of crime scenes. You have suspects that have committed crimes. You have a variety of crimes that they committed. And you have a location where they committed these crimes at. And you're trying to find clues, narrowing down your search, trying to find those 3 pieces of information. I very much enjoy playing this. You know, it's been out for a long time. It's kind of a harder one to find now. It's not in print anymore, which is also challenge, but this is something that could use some variety. You know, you can have a whole new city, you can have a whole new array of crimes, do something to make it something to come back to again and again. And I do enjoy, and I can play it over and over again, but it is just something that could use some spice, season it up a little bit.
I do kind of wonder what that would look like with a game like this, but I can definitely see what you're saying. I almost would just want like a remastered edition. Like
Yeah.
I almost just want it to be like redone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, something where you could change out. I think the pattern needs to still be there where you have the locations, and I think there's 16 locations. Each of those locations may or may not have a suspect at them. There's 16 locations, 14 suspects, and 12 crimes. We have to narrow those down. But to make those maybe not necessarily assigned so that you bring out locations. I think of like
Make it more modular, you mean?
Yeah, even something as simple as like a Tiny Epic game where you can just bring out those big cards to make those locations.
Yeah.
I still think you need to keep kind of that ratio of locations, suspects, and crimes. You're not filling them up with 16, 16, 16 because that makes the game just kind of drag out. And because it's a nice game because you play it in 3 quick rounds and then you have an overall winner over the 3 rounds. Just variety is ideal for that.
So if they remastered this, would they just have someone having to like poke holes in the lid in the factory?
For my copy?
For your copy?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a real whodunit, I think, you know?
Yeah. Well, the post office is who done it.
Yeah, we know who done it.
Yeah.
Who it was investigated and confirmed. Huh?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Since it was out of print, none of the contents were damaged, just a big hole through the box. I kept it.
Not going to return that.
Nope.
Yeah. So, okay, go with me on this for a second. How cool would it be if PI had an app integrated? I'm not talking like there's a BGA version. I'm not talking about like an app version of the game. I'm talking about an app to go along with it. Because my one complaint with playing this game at the table is that it relies on a neighbor to check your solution. They can and do
Make mistakes
and mess it up. Like by rule, there are some penalties and things involved if that happens, but it still kind of sucks the wind out of your game when it does.
Yeah.
How good would it be if you could use an app to check that information?
I think that'd be actually really cool because when I play on BGA, I don't think it's cheating. Because you can make notes, but I have a spreadsheet, right? So I keep all my information on a spreadsheet. so I can keep track of that.
Nerd.
Yeah, could be. And so, I mean, if you had
Wow.
you could do that with an app, and so everybody could kind of log in and share the game experience.
Yeah, just had like an instance of the game running on the app that everyone could log into, and that it would check your solutions for you so that no mistakes got made.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that I would say would be like just severely cool. If it had that, I would want to get that game out all the time.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me think of the app that's used for alchemists. So there's secret information, right? That you're entering things into the app and it's giving you answers based on that hidden information. Easily doable. I think the app that they did for alchemists is fantastic. It really, really works well with the game.
And that's a shared app too,
and
right?
it is a shared app. And it just gives you a code. So everybody can use it with their device. And it's just a shared code. You just put the code in and everybody can use a different device. You don't have to pass a phone around or anything. It's nice.
Yeah, that is super ideal. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, Doug. That's a tremendous idea. Get on it.
Yeah, I'll go start programming that tonight. You got it.
For my number 4, I put down Wasteland Express Delivery Service. I know there's a lot of like mini expansions and promo content out there for this game. It's like onesie twosie cards and stuff like that. But I would love to see an actual real expansion for this. I would love to see more ways to upgrade your rig, some cooler things that you can put on there, more unique missions. One thing that I don't care for this game is that you always have 3 missions, the 3 main missions that are public missions out there. One of them is always out there. And I would like to have that change. So, okay, you want to have a static mission out there every time, but at least have it so that maybe you have 3 options of these 3. One of these 3 has to be out there every time. So it's not the same one every time. Some different starting missions as well. So just adding more content to the random public missions and more characters. The characters are so fun, so unique. I would love to see maybe even some more unique asymmetrical abilities. Each of them are going to have like an asymmetrical start and some asymmetry to them. I think it's fairly light in the game. And even if they could even do it to where like you have these starting abilities and as you progress, those abilities maybe get enhanced or like a light level up system or something like that would be really cool.
That would be awesome. Yep.
But I think that would make it, and maybe even some more locations to make the map a little bit different each time. So there are different locations. There's some that aren't used in the game or something like that. That might be a little more difficult to do because of some of the mission cards. But anyway, I think some extra content and an actual full-blown expansion for this game would be huge and would really, really amp up this game a lot.
I'm with you on this one. I think I've played this one 2 or 3 times now. I've loved it every single time. This is a game that I really like a lot. For me, the base game isn't like exhausted at all yet. Oh man, yeah. Some expansion content for this, and especially when it comes to like asymmetry, I think would just be so fun.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a couple of their little support event kits.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love a full expansion would be ideal. This is such a good game.
It's awesome. Sticking with the post-apocalyptic wasteland vibe, the next one, number 4, I guess, on my list would be Radlands. So this is one that my son and I play quite a bit. We've played this one enough that I think we've kind of exhausted the strategies, or we've each kind of found our comfort level when it comes to how we like to play the game. Again, this is one where technically there is a Cult of Chrome expansion coming out. Like it has been announced and it's coming out. But this expansion is only adding new bases to the game. Core cards, the big deck of cards that you actually play the game with. You sort of build out your columns and rows in front of your bases as you play the game with your characters. And then as you play cards and do things, they attack, they go back and forth. And then if you can manage to expose somebody's base, you can use your characters to attack the base, and the first person to destroy, I think it's 2 of your opponent's bases wins, 2 or 3. Now that I'm sitting here talking about this game that I've played so much, I can't remember which it is. I think it's 2. But anyway, that space in the middle, it's pulling from that single deck of cards and you're colliding with your opponent. There is so much room to grow in that space. And at this point, I think it needs it. The game is fun and the characters are interesting and they do a variety of things, but they're also fairly simple. And I think it's a fairly safe design. Like they didn't take big risks when they were doing card design for this game. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think an expansion that maybe pushes and stretches that gameplay space in the game would be really vital. So they need to come out with something that actually changes that core deck that you play with.
Excellent. Amp up the arena there between them.
I think that's what it's missing.
All right. The next one on my list is Star Wars the Deck Building Game. Now, Star Wars the Deck Building Game does have a new standalone version, the Clone Wars, and the style that they're doing it is great. It allows you to have the Separatists, the Republic, the Rebels, the Empire, and 2 sets of neutral decks, and you can mix those up and play one against the other. And that's great, and it works out really well to give that variety. And like we already talked earlier in the podcast, that we've all kind of agree that the Clone Wars version is a little bit better. And but I still would love to see further expansion. If we go to the Clone Wars and that's all we're going to introduce, so we're not going to really introduce any of the deep cup characters, or do we have to wait for something to introduce like the Mandalorian, anything like that's in the wide scope, or we can go back to the old Republic and there's a whole slew of Jedi and all that just really aren't in there. And the format is nice. I enjoy the format, but I would just like to see more variety in there, more different characters and how they do that. And I don't know if you come up with another expansion, another standalone that's going to introduce, but not necessarily just say, okay, well, now we're going to go to post Return of the Jedi timeline and introduce like the Mandalorian or anything like that, but stick with some of those existing times. Expand some of the Empire characters, expand some of the Rebellion characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Expand some of the fringe that you see in Tatooine and other worlds. And then the same thing, going back to the old Republic era, to see some of those Jedi, to see some of those different
Sith Lords.
Yeah. And then, I think it would be even great. Go further. I'd love to see some old Republic in there.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
Having an old Republic Sith standalone, I think, would be great. But I agree with you, Nathan, that just looking. So I've played this a lot. Like I said, this week, and we've played a ton of both of these. And I want more content for the Empire and the Rebellion. I want more content. I want more planets that do different things unique to that faction, because there are a lot of planets that do the same thing for both sides, which I get. You kind of want to have that, but I want more unique stuff for each faction so that it feels completely different when I play the Empire versus when I'm playing the Rebellion. Not just the characters and the cards, because a lot of those do similar things too. I want a different experience when I play a different faction. I think the planets help out with that a lot, because the planets, if you pick the right planet based on how you've built your deck, it can really give you some momentum and some synergy. But I think if you can design it to where those have an expansion that comes out that plays to the strengths of some of the cards that are in that faction, that would be huge.
I mean, you still have to follow the pattern, right?
For
you still
sure.
have to come out with to be able to mix and match. It can't be customized. You can't all of a sudden make it a customized deck anymore, but you just have expansions.
Not only that, they need more options for exiling cards.
Yeah.
Because the game goes so fast, there needs to be more options to exile those starter cards.
Yeah, I agree.
I do agree. That's me and deck building in general, though.
Yeah.
I always want more ways to trash the starter cards.
Yeah, that should always, as Doug said, that should always just be built right into the cake.
I do wonder how much leeway they allow them with an IP where this is Star Wars and Fantasy Flight is borrowing the IP. And I know that when they get those rights, that there are all kinds of stipulations on how they can use it and what they're allowed to do. I do wonder if their hands are a little tied when it comes to the design space, but I love how open this system is. Like, it's a great deck building system, and I love the possibilities. Everything that you guys are talking about. Also, how cool would it be to zoom in a little bit? Everything right now, 2 boxes, 4 factions, but everything right now is one side versus the other, and you're destroying planets. How cool would it be if we could zoom in on a space battle where instead of planets, you've got your capital ships? Or how cool would it be if you could each control, like, one person could be the Empire, one person could be the Rebels, zoomed in on like the battle for Hoth, or the battle on Endor. Instead of planets, you've got heroes, generals. Or you can take this system and you can zoom it in to all the little things in Star Wars, like not just the history and scope of the Star Wars universe, breadth wise, but like zoom into the actual conflicts that aren't where you're not just like destroying whole planets.
Yeah.
With every conflict, where those conflicts are more zoomed in How cool would that be, right? Rather than Vader and Luke being cards in the deck that you could buy, how would it be if one person was Vader and one person was Luke, and the deck of cards represented you maneuvering your forces against each other? Like that kind of thing. That I think would be really fun.
Because Luke would have a bunch of Ewoks and that's it. So,
Or even make
Okay.
like Luke and Vader represent, I mean, you replace them instead of bases, you replace the bases with the key characters.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's I very much like that. And I don't know how limiting the IP is. I would think it has to be pretty liberal because there are some super crappy Star Wars games out there.
No, for sure. But however, like they license rights. I'm not an expert, so take all this with a grain of salt. But I do know that, like, they license rights for certain types of games to certain publishers at certain times.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that there are certain lines that they can't cross.
Yeah.
And even sometimes certain like whole sections of the IP they're not allowed to touch during certain times. And I don't know anything about that. I just am curious how much leeway they're going to have to keep working with that property.
Yeah.
that being said, we still need a Old Republic version with the Republic and the Sith. That would be awesome.
That would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
that would be cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right, back to you, Andy.
Okay. Well, my number 3 is Colony.
Oh, you're not wrong.
Oh my
Preach on,
gosh,
brother.
This one needed an expansion so badly. I love what they were trying to do with this game. It really, I think it was very interesting. It looked just cool when I was looking at it, and it just needed more content.
Yeah.
I mean, there just wasn't enough engine building material in there to really get anything going. And I think if they would have just had more content, an expansion, or even just really load that box up and sell it for a little bit more money to make it a great game. Because the potential in this game, I think, was huge, but it just was kind of,
Yeah.
You know?
No, it very much, even like after 1 or 2 plays of this game, I very much wanted content for it, more content, because it needed it.
It did.
Since it didn't have that content, that I ended up calling the game. Became too samey.
And that's the problem. But I like what they were trying to do. It just really lacked that deck building, engine building experience that I was looking for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking at this in the box. This isn't one I have played, but it's like taking me back to like Dominion. Does it play similar to that at all?
Kind of. It has dice involved as well. You're using dice.
Oh, okay.
So it is very different. It almost is combining like a dice placement, dice drafting type game with a deck builder.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It uses some Dominion elements, but it does use dice that you roll that you're going to use as resources. You can manipulate those dice, if
Yes.
I recall
Yep.
correctly. It's been a day or 2 since I've played it.
I do believe so.
And but yeah, no, it was a very good game. I very much enjoyed it, but 100% it needed more content.
Totally. It was just sad to see that it never got traction enough to really get another expansion out.
Yeah, and I
should
think
get
it would have had more initial content. Overall rating would be higher,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't. I mean, currently it sits at a 6.6 on BGG, and I think if it had more initial content, it would be up higher, and probably would have produced more sales enough to generate that other expansion. So,
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it falls into that category of one of those games that they purposefully withheld some of the content to try to, we want to do an expansion. I don't know how often that happens. Sometimes certain games feel like that's exactly what happened. And I'm wondering if this fell into that category. Like, we need to have something for an expansion, so let's save this. It's like, well, now your game doesn't even feel complete.
Yeah. Well, it is a busier game. We produce a lot of games.
Yeah.
And so I would think that they wouldn't have just abandoned it, but apparently they did. So
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, that is too bad. Okay, well, the next one on my list is Sanctum. Now, have either of you played this?
yes,
You have played it?
yes.
Okay. Andy, have you played this?
I have.
Okay. This is a little bit like Diablo, the board game. A little bit. I personally think that this is an incredibly underrated game. I
agree.
I think the game is actually excellent. However, I understand the criticisms that people do have. Because what this game does just insanely well is let you build a really cool, unique character using a whole deck of different loot cards, right? As you kill the monsters in the game, you flip them over, they turn into the loot that you gathered from them, and you're going to use that loot to build your character out and to try to get that to synergize with your skills. You're unlocking dice that you can roll, and you've got these little discs that you're putting all over everything to represent, what you've used. You've got to manage your stamina. There's all these really cool things. Like if you like that sort of character customization style game, I think this has that in spades. Where the game, I think where it fell short a little bit was that as you're progressing through it feels very samey. Like there's not a lot of strategy involved, right? You are either going to collect demons to your board where you are going to fight them by yourself, or you're just going to advance on the track, like further. You're going to make progress on the journey, so to speak. Not a lot going on as far as decisions to be made in that space. And then like the end boss is fun, but it's very much like rather than this game being like an actual like cooperative experience, it is a competitive experience, and it feels just a little bit jarring. And then when you get to that boss battle, it's like everyone's having fun, but it's sort of like, well, whoever can survive the fight first of all, or whoever has the most health remaining, or whoever fell last is the winner. Kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And it feels a little awkward and out of place. I would absolutely love an expansion for Sanctum that keeps all of that character customization, all of that, leaves it all intact, but turns it into a fully cooperative experience where as a group, you are fighting off the demons and bad guys, and you're kind of dealing with them in waves, and you've got to work together to deal with the stuff on the board, share loot, customize your builds, do all that kind of stuff, and then culminate in like a true boss battler that's challenging and, but that you sort of win or lose as a team. And that's the experience I think that Sanctum is missing out on, that an expansion could completely solve.
No, I agree. This is one that the first BGG I went to back in 2019. That's where I first played this, and it was great. I had a great experience. It was one of those games that I picked up there. So
awesome. Yeah, I really like this. It's maybe not a total favorite, but it's up there. It's high on my list of favorites.
It's one I haven't culled yet, so keeping it for some reason.
That's saying something.
All right. Next on my list is actually a fairly new game, Daybreak. This is a game that initially I had passed on.
Yeah, I was surprised to see this on your list.
And after playing it, I've played it and lost close to probably a dozen times now. And not saying that it's not a challenge, and I don't like that it doesn't have a challenge, but the fact that it needs more, I feel anyways, it needs more variety for startups. So you have the US, China, the other world, or the rest of the world.
And Europe.
And you just have these 4 options for the game setup and the game start. And I would really just love to see the rest of the world not just bundled in the rest of the world.
I agree. I actually totally agree with that.
And I would love to see some variety and some other options in there to just kind of give it a different setup. And I don't think I'm not anxious anyways for like new cards or anything like that, but just kind of a new setup and a variety of options to begin the game. Because once the game gets going, I think there's enough current variety in the game that you don't run into that same feeling over and over again. Although, you know what? Now that I mention it, yeah, there are several cards that they have just simple little tweaks on different cards. So yeah, I could see some variety. We need some variety in the decks too.
I think so. I think in particular those, what is it, like the group goal cards? I forget exactly what they're called. The community cards, or the ones that you can work together on.
Not the crisis cards, but the other ones.
The other ones. The ones that if you put resources into them, they have an ongoing benefit.
Yep.
I think that those could be, well, like you say, variety for one thing, but also some of them might even could use a little retooling and balancing a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, some updates on that. But actually the game...
it's really fun.
It is.
I was surprised.
I was really surprised. It was one that I was like, meh.
Yeah.
And but then playing through it, I very much enjoy the challenge of it because there is quite a bit of challenge in trying to get rid of all your bad emissions and try to bring in all your clean energies that you're producing.
Well, I mean, the sales pitch for the game is basically like, oh, it's a cooperative game about trying to sequester carbon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
that sounds exciting.
yay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. But then Richie played it and taught it to the rest of us. And lo and behold, it's actually a really fun game.
Yeah.
The card play in particular is very good.
Theme is kind of, I mean, I don't know. It's not I want to make sure we have a better place to live for sure. But for a game draw, that just doesn't really pull me in as exciting. I still think the theme isn't necessarily exciting, but the gameplay is done very well.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And the cooperative part of the game, I think, is really fun.
Yeah, you're fighting your own fight. At the same point, you want to be able to try to help your opponents out, or not your opponents, your teammates out. And it's
sometimes
not
they feel
easy.
like your opponents.
Yeah, sometimes they
when
do.
They're putting all that carbon into the atmosphere. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Get your energy figured out.
Yeah, and put all your communities in crisis. A very well done game, but it does need some startup variety. And some new cards would be nice as well. But startup variety, I think, desperately needs.
I could definitely see that.
You guys have only played this once?
No, I've played it at least a dozen times.
Have you actually played it?
I've actually played it.
Okay.
Yes.
I've played it 3 times at the table and only once actually. Well, no, I'm on my first game online.
Yeah.
So Andy would say I've played it 3 times.
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
So
Sorry,
like,
Jared.
so I am new. Like this is still yeah. This is still like a new game to me. You know, maybe getting a little variety in some of that. Even like game 1 when Richie's explaining the different like factions you can play, it's like, oh, we've just included the rest of the world as one faction.
Yep.
It's US, China, Europe, and everyone else. And it's like, ooh. It felt like a missed opportunity right out of the gate. I definitely understand what
The reason why I ask is if you had only played it a few times and you're already thinking it needs an expansion, it probably really, really does need an expansion.
Yeah, either 10 or 11 plays that I've already played it with, and I've won twice. The challenge is there. The issue is play as China. I fill up my communities in crisis, trying to mitigate that. But then you just run into the same way to lose, the same way to lose, the same way to lose, the same way to lose. And I'm enjoying my play, but I want to lose a different way.
Right. A little bit of a broken record.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 2 we've already discussed, and so Nathan, I am right on board with you on Star Wars the deck building game.
Oh, sorry, I took your steam there.
No, you're good. I think it 100% agree with everything you said there. Please bring out more content for us.
Yeah.
Not to bring the topic back up because I know we already talked about it. I was skeptical. I think we all were about how they were doing this, not an expansion, a standalone game expansion that they did with the Clone Wars. Now that we've had some time with it, I love it. I'm on board. I'm good. My worries have been quashed and more, please.
Yeah, Salvatore not necessarily chastised us, but praised the Clone Wars and made some very valid points that ring very true.
Yeah, he was right.
Yeah.
He definitely was right. Awesome. Okay, well, that'll take it to me, won't it? Next one, number 2, I guess, on my list is going to be, I think this was the one that you had originally put as your number 6, Nathan. This is After Us.
Yes. Yeah, it was my bonus one that I was going to throw in if somebody had a duplicate. And apparently I still ran over Andy's duplicate.
It's all good. So this is a game I've played about 20 times, have some experience with it. But at this point, I'm just feeling like it is turning just a little bit samey. It's turning into kind of know pretty much the strategy I'm going to go for. Tried a bunch of them, experimenting, go in different directions and stuff. I think I've pretty much landed on how I want to play the game every single time. And I win way more than I lose. It seems arrogant to say I've cracked the code. But I feel like on this game, I have kind of cracked the code. And so I would really love a new influx of cards to this game. Like a new faction of Ape, some way of changing the formula, introduction of some new, like, how you have the brackets that match up.
Yeah.
Like maybe some new symbols that go in those brackets that change up the strategy and how you can either build your tableau or earn points and sort of that tug of war between those two things. Like am I going to invest in building my deck, or am I going to invest on trying to explode with points? And if they can, figure out a way to sort of, I think take that system to the next step, that would just really, really be awesome. I would love to see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with you on this one. It's to the point where it is. I think samey is a very good way to put it. It kind of feels, I don't know, boring at this point. Whereas it was a lot of fun when we first started playing it, and it's kind of that way. Someone, let's play after us. I'm like, oh no, let's play something else. And I would love for it to be fresh again and to be exciting and fun to play. And I've kind of lost my desire to play that game. I haven't lost it enough to sell my copy.
I don't think you can ever get to that point.
Also, don't threaten selling copies. We know you don't cull games. So
Yes.
just stop it right there.
That wasn't a threat. That was just a statement of fact.
Yeah.
I definitely have not gotten to the bored of it stage. And I don't want to present it quite that way for me anyway. It's not a game that I'm bored of. I still am excited about the game, and I still like to play it. I actually really like to introduce it to new players, or even to players who just haven't played it yet, because it ends up being a lot more fun at the table than most people expect that it's going to be. So I still think it's a great game. It definitely has an honored place on my shelf. I really like this game. However, if it's going to see more playtime, it needs some new content.
100%.
Yeah. So if you've played it 19 times and you figured it out, what does that say about me? I've played it 49 times and I haven't figured it out yet.
You probably have.
No comment. I don't know.
Stop being so humble, Nathan. You've figured it out almost 2.5 times more than Doug has.
Is that what
That
it
does
is?
make me wonder though, because a lot of those have got to be BGA plays.
There are
So
several.
who do you play with?
My wife mostly.
Oh, okay.
So that explains it.
Wondering why you're not including me in these plays, but okay, it's fine. It's all good.
I'll have to include you. I'll get one with you.
You
and
were for a
Jody.
while. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe I was winning too much. I'm not sure. Did I scare you
It could
away?
be. I don't know. I'm used to losing, so losing's not.
Doug's like, hey, invite me so I can kick your butt.
Yeah.
I've got this. I've cracked the code. Invite me into your play.
Let me prove it to you.
I've mastered this game.
Again
Invite
and
me.
again.
Oh, that does make me sound like kind of a jerk.
All right, so my next one on my list is the Pandemic Legacy series.
You want another season?
I want another season. Fit into that expansion list. You're right. You can't expand a game that's been a legacy game, but I thoroughly have loved my experiences with the legacy system, Pandemic Legacy system, and I've played Pandemic Legacy Season 1 3 times, and I would totally play it again.
I would too. It's a great game.
Yeah.
I would too. It's actually the only one that I have played. So I would actually be more interested in playing Season 2 or Season 0.
Yeah, and I have a copy of Season 2 that we started. We went through one round of that, and I would totally play that again. And Season 0, Season 0 was kind of like the weakest one for me, but I still had fun with it. I think Season 2, the exploration in Season 2 was phenomenal. The story drive in Season 1 was great.
Yeah, it really was.
I just would love to see more Pandemic Legacy. That experience was phenomenal for me. And so it's kind of my cheater one. I guess we've all had some cheater ones on here, but just having more Pandemic Legacy experiences would be amazing.
Nice. I agree.
You've got to think that, I don't know, given the success of these, given I believe how well they have sold, you've got to think that there's like a Season 3 coming eventually, right?
I would hope so.
You would totally hope so.
Yeah. Rob Davio and Matt Laycock have done several other things together, which is nice. But, and Pandemic itself isn't one of my favorite games, but Pandemic Legacies, I have loved.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Pandemic it by itself is very, very meh.
Yeah.
But the legacy experience is one of my
Amazing.
favorite legacy games we've ever played. I mean, like I said, we've only played through season one, but it was awesome. It was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll agree with you, Nathan. We need another one, even though that's kind of sort of an expansion.
It is. Yeah. No, it's not really an expansion, but it's expanding the Pandemic universe.
Expanding the Pandemic universe.
Stretching that expansion line as far as I can.
Just stretched. It's not broken.
Yeah.
Guess we'll allow it.
All right. So my number 1 is Smiths of Winterforge. I have owned this game for several years. I've played it twice, and every time I'm thinking, I want this to be more than it is.
Oh, really? Like,
And-
it's just really simple.
Yeah, it needs more meat. It really does. So your Smiths, you're going around the board. There are 4 locations in the corner and 1 central location. You can increase your skills. You're trying to gain contracts and fulfill those contracts. You go to the market to buy your materials, and then you forge whatever the contract is for. And if your skill's high enough, you can forge it, which is going to increase your skills. You sell that. And anyway, it's very simple, but I think it was, I once again, the potential of this game, I think, is huge. It's right up there with Colony as far as the potential for it.
Uh-huh.
And they needed more to it. It is too simple. There's not enough meat on there. They have a very light asymmetrical start where, okay, you start with, so there are 3 skills. You start with one level in each of these 2 skills, and you start with these 2 skills, and so on. So it's very, very light asymmetry. I think it would be amazing if each of the characters had very distinct strengths to them that played to the cards and the different contracts and things that you can forge. And you can, if you play to those strengths, that's going to give you bonus points. Or even more, I think what it really needs is those contracts when you forge those items that you're forging in the game, that it's just not giving you money and end of game points, that it actually has meaningful boons that you're getting during the game. It makes me think of something along the lines of the Lords of Waterdeep, where you complete those quests and you're getting something, not just points, you're getting something for it. You're getting more fighters, you're getting wizards, you're getting money, you're getting something that's going to help you for your next quest. And I think if there's enough meat on there that it's like, I'm not just, okay, I go do this, I'm going to go sell it, and then I'm going to go get another one, I'm going to go buy my stuff, I'm going to sell it. It just seems very monotonous almost. And I like the idea of it, but it needs an expansion. It needs something to where I don't feel like I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, so that I feel like I'm like everybody's doing the same thing over and over, and you just see who gets lucky and gets the right contract at the right time that has their skills. There's a little bit of strategy involved in what skills you raise up and everything else. So it's not completely luck based. I'm not saying that, but it's one of those that it needs more ways to score points. It just needs more meat on the bone.
More variety.
Lays out a good foundation, but needs something to actually complete the game. Sounds a little bit like Champions of Midgard.
It really kind of does. And I think it could totally be fixed and just be this amazing game if they would just come out with something that, they've even reprinted it. It was popular enough that they reprinted it, but it would be really amazing if they would just come out with an awesome expansion that really
brings it home.
It just really brings it home, takes it to the next level.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, if they ever do come up with that, let's play it. Sounds like one I would want to play if it came out with an expansion.
Yeah.
Having never played it before. Okay, so the last one I wanted to talk about, and when I was going through and making my list, what I did was I tried to think about a game on my shelf that if they announced an expansion for it, that I would just be over the moon with excitement about. And as I was looking through my shelves and contemplating games, and a lot of the games that I really like, a lot of my very favorite games, they have expansions. There's content out for them that I haven't explored yet, content that's been announced that's coming out for them. I was thinking what's something that's been stagnant on the shelf for a long time, and if it got a nice expansion, it would really just make me giddy, to the table. Right? Yeah. And I landed on Oceans. So this is a game that I have had and have loved for a number of years now. I have 131 plays of this game.
That's a lot of nuts.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So some of those are app version plays. This is a game that hits the table, at least, when it first came out, it hit the table a lot. Now, recently they did run a Legends of the Deep expansion, which gave each player a couple of asymmetric powers, that were more they weren't really cards that were out in play in your tableau. They were just your power, something you could do. And there were mechanics to let you sort of switch back and forth between these legend cards. And it was cool. It did a little bit to change how the game is played, but not much. This wasn't like a a full expansion. This was just a pack.
But this is one of those, that expansion pack, right? That's also, I think, falls into one of those that you would just never play the game without it.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
just always
Once
put
it's
it in.
out, it's like, yeah, we're always playing with this. It's always
Yeah.
included. So the big thing with that was they did run that on Kickstarter. That was sort of the product that they launched with the Kickstarter, along with a big box, right? So this had like a big storage solution that really improved how the game is stored and put away, and it now comes out on all these nice trays, and you can set it up and do that all, really easy. So it's very nice, but it doesn't change the formula in unique or fun ways.
Let me ask you this. They came out with a big box. Is there room in that big box?
There is.
Oh.
So it kind of gets me excited
There you
for
go.
the potential of what could come.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, even the deck of deep cards in this game, I think, every single card in that deck is unique, and they've got a lot of great stuff. And I would love to see a few more cards thrown in there. I think that'd be awesome. For me, this is mostly the reef cards, the base game cards. I think there's 16 different cards. I mean, there's multiple copies of each of those cards, but it's the same 16 cards that everybody's working with to sort of flush out their tableau in front of them. I would love to see that expanded and built upon. It needs it. It really does. Because the game is awesome. It's really a lot of fun, but the space just could do so much more with a new influx of cards.
Yeah. This is one that I owned, and then I played your version, and I was like, oh, mine stinks.
Because he had the
The deluxeified edition.
the acrylic
yeah.
fishes, and
Nathan had cardboard fish instead of acrylic fish.
Yeah. So I culled it. And then I found the deluxe, and so I unculled it.
you ended up buying it again.
It's a great game. It really is.
Nice.
But man, does it at this point need an expansion, especially for me, especially after, 130 plays.
Yeah, that's a lot of plays.
It needs some more cards. Give me more. I want more.
All right.
Sounds amazing. All right, my last one. And it's kind of funny, as we were making this, I was going through the list of games. I'm like, okay, what game do I have that I want an expansion for? And I came across Planet Unknown. Oh, well, it's got an expansion coming out. Go down the list and find something else. And, how about Heat Pedal the Metal? Oh, we just got Heavy Rain. How about Earth? Oh, Abundance. And I was going through my list, and then I found the one. Right, the one.
The
that was on
one.
the list.
I have mixed feelings about this choice.
Oh, do you?
I don't.
I don't at all.
Well, I will tell you what they are after you
Yeah.
stop bearing the lead and tell people what you're talking
Is
about.
what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so when I found this game, and I was like, oh yeah, I have this game. I have a ton of content for this game. And then we're coming back to Fantasy Flight. They just had this, and then they just pulled the plug and threw it out.
Yeah, they do that.
And we're talking about Star Wars Imperial Assault. And that game I have played several times, and I very much enjoy the game. I think that with this content, kind of when you were talking about Descent, I do like that. There are patterns that you have to follow, but you're not stuck to any key character. You can play any of the characters, and then in between missions, there's variety of side missions that can come in and come about. Just so much fun in this game, and this is something that we very much need to get to the table again, because it has been way too long.
Well, not only that, I think they have the app for this. I know you're not as big of a fan of the app, but how easy would it be just to come out with some more content for the app, not only for this, but for Descent 2nd Edition. And that's another one that they abandoned that was a huge game.
Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle-earth.
Right, same thing. And it's so easy it shouldn't be that hard anyway. I'm not a programmer. I don't know how easy it is, but I would imagine that wouldn't be that complicated to continually release stuff for the app, or even open source it so that all the fans that have that skill can start creating content for it.
Yeah, and I know Fantasy Flight kind of dropped it, and so okay, we're improving on that model. We're going to Star Wars Legion, and so they've abandoned it. They're not making any miniatures for it. They're not doing anything like that. Well, you still have Star Wars Legion that's kicking out, and how better way to include, maybe get me to buy more Star Wars Legion than to say, hey, you can use your Star Wars Legion with these to advance the storyline, and we're making content,
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't necessarily need a ton more models. I want story content.
Right.
And that really is a challenge, I get, and that totally does take time to develop and develop it well. But Fantasy Flight has this history of we're going to do something, we're going to do it well, and it's going to do really good. People are going to like it, and then we're going to just drop it.
Yeah, that's what they do.
And
It's
that
true.
drives me nuts because I have something, and Imperial Assault, I'm not a marketer by any means. I don't have the statistics, but it felt like whenever it was available, that stuff was gone like immediately.
Yeah.
If you weren't in the first wave of hitting when those things came out, then it was, you had to wait for reprints, and it could have been that Fantasy Flight was only just printing small lot loads, and it could be all of that. But man, it almost feels like I was betrayed by Fantasy Flight. That they just took something and just said, there.
Oh, you
there
like
is.
it? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
have fun with that.
Yeah.
What you got is what you got.
Yeah, it's like going to the grocery store and I find like an ice cream or a food that I really like, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, how about that? We're gonna stop making it.
Well, man, it's so weird. I don't want to go down this weird like Fantasy Flight rabbit hole too far, but it's just so weird because both of these games, and these aren't the only ones that they've done this with.
Right.
But you're looking at Imperial Assault and Journeys in Middle Earth. They're so weird because what they do is they have their marketing director, or their publisher, the producer guy, whoever, like whatever suit is running stuff at the time. They basically come out and say like, yeah, this is complete. This is done. They've done that with both of these. They did it with Imperial Assault and they did it with Journeys in Middle Earth, where they're just like, no, this was what we set out to do. We're done. It's over. Like this is it. And it's like
Willy Wonka. That's it. We're done. Goodbye.
Yeah. It's like, wait, what do you mean we're done? We're just getting started. Like, come on, guys. Like, here's my money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Isn't this what you want?
I just don't necessarily get that part of it.
Yeah, I don't either.
It feels a little weird. Now, the reason why I said I'm mixed on this choice a little bit is just because I still have expansions I haven't played through yet. Like I have stuff that I want to finish. I have a couple of the small box expansions, and I think at least one of the bigger expansions that I have not played through yet.
I've been through them all, so.
Okay, well, I could definitely get wanting more. I want this to just hit the table again. I just want to finish playing what I have. But this is absolutely one that I wish they would pick back up and keep making stuff for.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like this is, to me, this is the Star Wars. This is the best Star Wars board game experience you can have.
I agree. Yeah. I've played Legion and I enjoy Legion, but it's a battle.
Right.
Imperial Assault has story, it has drive, it has a complete feeling. You can the Mandalorian could totally revive that and give you a whole new arc to go down.
Yep, 100%.
But no, we're done. It's done.
Yeah,
we don't want your money.
Well, it's because Star Wars isn't done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Star Wars and the stories that they covered in those expansions that they made were only small parts of the universe, right? It's like,
for sure.
Come on, guys.
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about with the deck builder, right? You have not just the Mandalorian, you have all the Old Republic stuff. You have, all just tons and tons and tons of content that you could work with and really, honestly, make a ton of money on, because the game's great and it's Star Wars. People will buy it just because it's Star Wars.
Yeah. I'm sitting right here.
I know. But the fact of the matter is that it wouldn't be a nerd tax because
it's good.
The game is phenomenal.
Yeah. No, and that bears repeating because there are great Star Wars games out there. We've talked about our love for the deck building game. You've got stuff like Outer Rim. You're talking about Legion. There are good Star Wars games out there. Even Mandalorian Adventures, and it's has some redeeming things. Although I think that one ultimately fell a little bit flat. But there are good Star Wars games out there. This is the Star Wars game.
Yeah.
In my mind, this is the Star Wars game. If you want to play Star Wars at the table, this is the game to buy. This is the game to have.
Yeah, 100%. All right, does that complete our list?
That is our list. 5 different games that we really would like to see some more content for, or games that really need some extra content.
Yeah. I know Imperial Assault's just a pipe dream, right? That's never going to get more content. But, even some fan-based stuff would be
great.
Well, even if they just allowed the community to have the the app, right?
Yep.
Because the community could go through and convert the stories from the boxes into the app. And that alone would make the app worth using. I mean, I'm not app averse at all whatsoever. My big beef with that was that the campaign that the app ran you through was like its own sort of thing, right? It was separate from the stories and the things that came in each of the Star Wars Imperial Assault boxes that felt very thematic. The units and everything that went with that box felt very thematic. It felt like a great story and experience in a box.
Yeah.
And the app kind of broke that for me, which was ultimately why I didn't care for the app. But man, if you open source that and let the community start creating those stories and putting all that in and stuff, that'd be fantastic.
Yep. Agreed.
Please do that, Fantasy Flight.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nope, it's done.
Please.
We're whining. We don't want your money.
Awesome. Well, if there are games that you think need an expansion that we did not cover, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, please let us know.
Reach out to us. Until next time.
We'll see you scratching your head at saying, why doesn't this game have an expansion at the game table?
Thank you for listening and being a part of Meeple Nation. If you would be so kind as to follow, subscribe, share, and rate or review this podcast, it really helps to spread the fun. You can be more involved in supporting the podcast by joining the nation at patreon.com/Meeple Nation, or you can find a link at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. And while you're there, look at all our extra content. There are links to all our past episodes, a wide variety of blogs, pictures from our Instagram feed, and bios for all the hosts and our awesome bloggers. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under Meeple Nation. If you would like to chat with the hosts or other members of the nation, you can join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. We hope to see you again at a game night, a con, or maybe a suspense-driven evening of Werewolf. Thank you for listening and supporting Meeple Nation, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We very much want to thank our patrons who help keep the podcast running. I personally want to thank my co-hosts for all the help they provide with both content here on the podcast, in addition to what we have available on our website. Without them, the podcast would not happen. If you too would like to support the podcast, you can join the nation at patreon.com/Meeple_Nation. Or you can find a link to Patreon at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. If you have any questions, comments, or games you feel should be on our radar, you can always reach us at meeplenation@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. I am grateful to Doug and Andy who helped me edit episodes, and I want to thank James and Kim Clark who do the editing on our blogs and on our webpage, which can be found at meeplenation.com. We want to thank Brain Detergent for our music. If you want to find more from him, you can follow his links that can be found on our webpage, or simply search for Brain Detergent on YouTube to find more of his tracks. Thank you again for listening and being part of the Meeple Nation community.